first we'll do a casual introduction and then we'll do the actual introduction.
The casual is here, so here we are.
Those of you who are joining us live, thank you. We are going to officially record our podcast, but we're all saying hello. So we've got myself, I'm Amy. Those of you who are joining us on the visual spectrum. I don't know where you guys are in relation to me.
Try to introduce us and see if you introduced the wrong one.
This is Morgan.
No.
This is Morgan.
Yes, that's me.
And Kat, guest
How's it
starring
going, guys?
Morgan's cat, not Kat's cat.
No.
My cat just went into the snack drawer and then ran off with a bag of pork rinds. So that's what happened immediately preceding this recording.
That's why we're starting late, kind of.
I discovered the makeup
on the cat.
cream that I bought was about 25 shades too light accidentally. So I had to put on like a rush makeup job because I looked like a ghost.
You look like you're glowing now.
I'm glowing.
I discovered nothing, so I'm so far okay. I hope there's no discoveries during the show.
All right. Those of you who are listening, stay tuned. We're going to start recording our official Queer Representation AMA podcast.
Oh, right. Sorry, we're actually doing a real thing. All right, go.
This is how it works. Welcome to LOT Podcast, everyone. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Legends of Tomorrow podcast. We are your legendary ladies, your three hosts, Amy, Kat, and Morgan. We thank you for joining us for this very special episode leading up to the premiere of Legends of Tomorrow Season 6 in May. We're very excited. We've been promising to record this episode for a very, very long time. It is a companion to the episodes we recorded back in June of 2020. And those episodes were very special to the three of us. They were our LGBTQ queer representation in media episodes, guest starring friends of the podcast, Phil, Sarah, and Lara. We are going to be reading feedback directly from fans who have listened to this episode. So for those of you who have not yet listened to these episodes, we highly encourage you go and take a gander at them. But I don't necessarily think you need to do that before you listen to this podcast. Although I do recommend listening to those two in order. We have some very intense thoughts about various different representation aspects in media, some positive, some in need of improvement. But we are really proud of those two episodes. I think it's probably easy to say those were not only some of the most interesting episodes we recorded, but some of the most well-received, and genuinely, we were blown away by the amount of very, very honest and emotional feedback we received from both longtime listeners and new listeners in response to those episodes. We read all the emails and the tweets that we got back and knew that we had to do just a separate podcast about the feedback we received. So a lot of this podcast is going to be us directly sharing the emails that we received. We did reach out to every person who sent us an email that we will be reading on this podcast to confirm that they were okay with us sharing the information, as some of it is deeply personal. And we ask that those of you who are listening keep an open mind as well as a safe space when you're listening to this podcast. However, before we get into that, Morgan has some perfectly relevant, freakishly relevant news that actually came out yesterday.
Amazingly relevant news. In fact, I was emailing back and forth with somebody who had written us in feedback, and they wrote back and they were like, unrelated, but did you hear about the Zarly kiss news? So let's get into
related.
Ooh, interesting. I was like, we are definitely going to be talking about that on the podcast, is what I wrote back. That's why I did those jazz fingers. So on we have a TV Line article here that kind of outlines it, but basically, Maisie was on a panel recently and mentioned that there had been a Zari and Charlie kiss that was cut from the June finale. So I guess there was a fan question about the Charlie Zari relationship, and that it was revealed that there was a kiss. So it says that in this TV Line article, it says Charlie, knowing that she'd never again see Zari 1.0, who'd chosen to return to the totem since she couldn't exist in the same timeline as Bayrod, decided to take a leap and kiss the departing legend farewell. So Maisie, sorry, there's so many banner ads on this site. Maisie, who plays Charlie, confirmed that the kiss was cut because it didn't fit the tone of the scene, which was focused on Zari 1.0's tearful send-off. She said, Team Zarly, know that the kiss was cut solely because it changed the needed tone of an emotional scene. Everyone wanted to keep it, but Legends is only the magical show it is because of trusting our instincts with hard decisions like this. Love you all, and Zarly. And then one of the executive producers waited on Twitter saying the writers loved it when we broke the episode, when Morgan Faust and I wrote the moment when it was shot and when we saw it in the dailies. What Maisie says is true. Leaving it out was not a decision made lightly. And although the scene never made it into the episode, the Legends of Tomorrow's writers' room said they're hard at work trying to get the scene in front of fans. So they tweeted, release the Zarly scene update. Calls are being made. Things are being run up flagpoles. In short, we see you, we hear you, and we will keep you posted. So watch this space. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they are trying to at least release the scene that was supposed to be in the finale, this kiss scene that was supposed to be in the finale. What do you think of all of this? Because to me, I don't understand if they could see that there was a lot of chemistry between Charlie and Zari, then why did we spend so much time on the Nate thing?
I think we should have had the kiss. I don't understand why not.
I almost kind of understand it though, because it feels like it would have they built up the Nate relationship, which honestly I was never into, and I would have preferred a Zarly thing. But if when you make that choice, I don't know, I think it would have felt very
just make the fans happy. Who cares?
Fan
right?
service. Yeah, I think it would have been it was straight up fan service. I feel like.
Especially since it is the last moment we're going to see Zari. I almost 1.0, but yes, Zarly. I don't know. There's part of me that understands what they mean about the tone, because I think we've all, I just recently, both Morgan and Kat inspired me to start doing a writing competition. And I definitely have felt like a lot of the stuff recently, it's the definition of kill your darlings. There are words or phrases or things that I wanted to write into something I'm writing. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't actually fit. I love it, but it's not going to work in the main thing. So I guess I can understand that. And I'd be curious to see what it looks like when we actually see it. However, this is Legends of Tomorrow. What person was going to be like, yeah, that didn't work? I mean, we might have looked at it and been like, that could have worked elsewhere, but we'll take it.
Everyone's still gonna take it, right?
Yeah,
I think people would have been happier to see it. My thing is what's taking so much for them to release it? Why do they have to go through hoops to release it?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like it would be a standard deleted scene. So why would it be a big deal about them releasing it?
They may just simply have not edit it. Maybe they just didn't edit it or something, and it's simply they need to finish it and edit it, and I don't know. Maybe. I mean,
it definitely means that at least the creative team saw that there was a lot of chemistry, all the viewers were seeing between Charlie and Zari. So I think in some ways it's vindication. You're not crazy if you saw that chemistry. It was clearly there. They threw in a kiss because of it.
But they deleted it, so...
But then they deleted it right out of the episode.
What I find a little bit interesting is where Maisie's well, part of the thing that makes Legends work is its magic craziness. I'm like, yes! So a kiss in the middle of a tearful goodbye is right on brand. All you're doing is defending the fact that this would have probably worked out rather well.
Yeah, I do have questions about the idea of it's going to throw off the emotion of the scene, because again, Legends does that sort of emotional whiplash really well usually, where it's a funny moment or a surprising moment or a surprise kiss or something like that, and then right back into an emotional moment. It's not the kind of a series where I would be totally thrown off by seeing something like that. So I don't know. It seems weird.
I really like that phrase you just used, emotional whiplash. I'm literally writing it down. And if we ever need a ska band name, we're calling it Emotional Whiplash. Maybe they're the same people who opened for Time Suicide, that band we created back in season 1 or season 2.
We're bringing it back around.
But Emotional Whiplash might be better than Time Suicide.
Emotional Whiplash. If you all who are listening live have any suggestions about band names to go with Emotional Whiplash and Time Suicide, please send them in.
We're looking for our Warp Tour.
Yes. So this is a podcast that's going to have a lot of feedback. Are we good on the news? Do we want to share anything else about it?
I think. Oh, about that, I think I'm good. But I was gonna say I don't think there's any other news to talk about. Sadly,
No, there's no trailer yet. We were really hoping for a trailer by now.
There's there's really nothing that's come out so far, which honestly, coming from Supergirl, where they just randomly announced that the new season was starting like post haste and also haven't released anything. I feel like I was like, oh well, it's May. It's not like it's happening in a week and a half, so I think we're still good.
Man, you got that poster though, so it's all good.
We did get that poster, thank God.
All right. I say we move on to our feedback. Also, those of you who are listening, we are accepting AMA questions as well as comments. So those of you who would like to join in, if you have any suggestions or comments about things that we're reading, then go ahead and let us know. Like, for instance, Rachel has said that we should have 3 bands, the potential being Emotional Whiplash, Time Suicide, and Lust Dust.
I love it.
All good.
Very different titles.
That's fantastic. All right. This first email that we are going to read is from New Rachel. Who wants to take this one? I feel like this should be a Kat email because we know how much
Is it short?
loves reading emails.
What if we give Kat all the longest emails?
No. I think I actually tried to excuse myself for emails, and these girls right here said no. And
I was like, what if I did other things? Or like, it's an email focused podcast.
No. All right, guys.
We'll talk about each email after we read them. So here we go.
And like we said, AMA as well. So questions, and also if you have shows you want us to talk about, maybe we've seen them, we could chat about that too. All right. So we got New Rachel who says, "Dear Legendary Ladies, so right now I'm listening to your episode about queer representation." I'm reading the whole thing, right? Or are we just reading?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay. And because you mentioned that you couldn't think of any young male queer characters in animated shows, I have 4 examples for you. Benson from Kipo and Age of Wonder Beasts, a show that came out this year from DreamWorks. Well, since they mentioned a show, I'll stop it for a second. Has anyone watched that show? I haven't seen it personally.
I haven't watched it yet.
The DreamWorks animation is solid stuff, so I will add
DreamWorks is good stuff
to my list.
Yeah, I've heard good stuff about the show. I have not seen it myself. I'm not, as you guys probably know, a mystical fan, and it seems very mystical.
Ooh, I might like it then.
So maybe Amy will give us her opinion to see if we'll do an episode maybe about it. But Rachel continues, there's also Shiro from Voltron, who might not count because he's older. And admittedly, I haven't seen all of the show, but according to the showrunners, he's gay and got and was married to a man at the end of the series. Has anyone seen Voltron? I also have not seen Voltron, but I think the Avatar: The Last Airbender creators wrote that show.
Well, now I definitely need to add it to my list.
So we all got to watch. We are going to do an Avatar Legend of Korra episode one day for sure.
And an original series episode. Don't worry.
An original series episode. So let's continue. And from what I've seen, there's another gay male character in the animated series, The Hollow, but I haven't watched that either. I haven't even heard of that show.
No, neither have I.
Mm-hmm.
So the subtextual episode is with apologies to Kat, because I know she doesn't care about the character or the team he comes from, Brainiac 5, in the animated Legion of Superheroes series, who over the course of the show appear to have strong feelings for Superman, especially seen in the first 2 minutes in season 2 premiere. Now I got to ask Morgan, have you seen Legion of Superheroes? So I feel like that's something maybe that Rebecca would make you watch, but not yet.
It feels like something I would watch for Supergirl Radio, but I have not watched it yet. So no, I've never seen it.
And I surprisingly have not seen it either. So this post also has some information about the character and the matter of his being bisexual or not in the comics, as well as mentioned in the show. And even Supergirl it's Jesse Rath, is
Yeah.
supportive of Brainy being bisexual, although it's still subtext for him. I know this certainly isn't enough, and there's always room for improvement in this area. And with all kinds of representation as a woman who's bisexual and also on autism spectrum, I certainly like to see more characters like myself, but I just thought I would share anyway, because I thought it would be good to know. And that is Rachel's email. I don't think I missed
Rachel.
anything. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some good examples in this one. I see that that Desmond also says the new that he's seen the new Voltron and it's good.
Yeah, I've heard good stuff about it. I don't know if it's like my taste or not, but the animation looked kind of cool.
Voltron is the one you said is the Avatar creator people's.
Mhm.
You know, the thing I love about them, not to get too far on a tangent, is that they are very passionate about their worlds that they create, and are genuinely care about creating well-rounded worlds. I mean, you watch Avatar and Korra, and it is clear how much effort they put into creating a world that doesn't exist on this planet, and yet somehow manages to represent every single walk of life.
Yeah, 100%. I love their writing. They're doing, they have their new Avatar studios that they're releasing, some more Avatar content I'm very excited for. So very much looking forward to that. Oh, Rachel has something to add. I should add that this email was sent before DC Fandom, where it was revealed that Brainy's crush on Superman was intentional. So there you go. Even more representation there. We're getting a lot of people asking about Winona Earp. We will 100% talk about the show. I know there's a lot to talk about with it, so we'll get
I
there.
would love to. I've actually never seen Winona Earp.
You haven't?
I've been to Earp parties. I've never seen.
You have been to Earp parties. I thought you were an
parties.
Earper too. I thought you were a fellow Earper.
Let's
I
talk
have
about
met the
Earp.
Earpers.
They're all nice.
They're very nice. And I've met the actress who played Winona Earp. I got a tie monogrammed with her. That sounds really weird. it was at a sci-fi party, and they were celebrating the magicians, and everybody got a tie. And we had to wait in line to get this tie, and you got to put like a little seal on it. And we were all waiting in line together to get our ties. I still have it. It's got a bumblebee on it. Anyway.
Very cute.
No, I've not seen the show. Not yet.
That's so funny.
It's worthwhile. I know, Morgan, I don't know if you've seen all the episodes. I've only gotten up to like season 2, and then I saw like parts of the other seasons. Like I've seen clips of the other seasons, but I haven't seen the rest of the show. But it's fun. It's a Western female driven. And then also the Way Hot. I know that's like a big thing. And also I know they have this, like, I don't know if you heard about this, Morgan. I'm sure you have, but there's like this stairway scene that they
I
like.
saw the
it was a present to the it was definitely very hot. Way hot for sure.
It was way hot indeed.
A lot than you would
I watched that scene like when it was airing, and I was like, are they allowed to do this on sci-fi? It was quite explicit.
Almost like all those rules because of like the fans, and it was really interesting. And just like from a fan of television, I thought it was really cool to see like how much they got away with in that.
They got away with so much with like camera angles and fuzziness. I was so impressed. I was like, props to them figuring out how to do this scene that they wanted to do. So yeah, no, I'm a big Winona Earp fan. I've been watching since the first season. I am like behind on this current season. I'm like a handful of episodes behind. I've kind of just let them pile up on my DVR. I like to just kind of binge it, so I'm just waiting to have them and like watch them. But no, it's a really fun show. Like it takes like an episode or two, I feel like, in the first season to kind of get into it. But what I really like about Winona Earp, besides the representation is really good, but I just love the characters. Like I think that show has really great, cool characters that I just want to like hang out with, and I would basically kind of don't even care about what's going on in the plot. I'm just like, yeah, I just want to hang out with these people.
Go to Disneyland together with them, kind of
exactly.
They definitely have some awesome personalities in this. I was actually just thinking about this because again, I saw the first 2 seasons of the show, and I know that the sister Waverly, right? That's the sister's name.
That's Waverly.
Okay,
yeah.
So she had a boyfriend in the beginning, and then she had Nicole, right, is the girlfriend. Do they ever mention that she's bi, or is it like, do they ever talk about that, or is she not bi? Like that's one thing, maybe representation wise, like did they do it well, did they not do it well? Again, like what Did they just end up together?
That's a good question. They kind of just get together, and I don't think that I think that they might mention that she's bi, but she doesn't really show much interest in men after her and Nicole like kind of get together. Which I mean, they're like in a loving, committed relationship, so she's not like really looking around. But yeah, I don't know that they've said bisexual on the show, but they probably. I feel like that's probably just me forgetting it, honestly, because I know that the creator of Winona Earp came from, oh, what was that other show? But it was like the show had a bisexual female lead in it. So I can't imagine that they'd like overlook that. But now I can't even remember the show.
So we actually have, thank you for the fans of Winona Earp here. Yes, they mentioned that Waverly's bi. There's a bi erasure comment in the current season 4, episode 7.
See, I'm behind. That's why. There you go. Lost Girl. Thank you, comments. I love you guys. The show that Emily Andros, who's the showrunner of Winona Earp, was also on is Lost Girl, and that's a show I've been meaning to watch because I hear it's really fun and has a bisexual female lead character, so good representation too. So I think I want to say it's on Netflix. It was at one point on Netflix.
You never know with sci-fi. Yeah, and also all these other streaming services.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you guys for the questions on that. We're going to move on to the next email. I don't know who wants to read next.
I can get next.
Well, the one after that is Jill's. Do you want to read Jill's?
It's up to you, Amy. Which one do you want to take?
Jill's your bestie.
Okay, I'll take Jill's.
Yeah, I don't mind reading Jill's. Jill's is an actual memoir. I
love Jill's. Jill's was
Jill's is great. Jill's is great.
Beautiful. Not to say that this next email from Gladys is not also great.
They're all great.
Gladys sent us a short little email that said, on the podcast, there was a mention of a lack of young boys on TV who are LGBTQ. She says, I think you need to watch more mainstream TV. On NBC, there's a show called Council of Dads with a kindergarten-age trans boy. A Million Little Things on ABC has a young teen boy who is gay. A long story arc told his story culminating in his first kiss. As a straight 68-year-old woman, this topic is not something I pay a lot of attention to. So those two examples were just off the top of my head. I'm sure there are others I just haven't thought of. The first gay person I remember on TV was Paul Lynde on Hollywood Squares and Bewitched, although I did not know he was officially, quote, out. But in those days, there was not a lot of discussion about sexuality. I enjoy your podcast. Gladys. So have you all seen this Million Little Things or Council of Dads?
I'm so bad. I'm so bad at television. I always get made fun of because of it. Because I just like sometimes because you do so much in like storytelling all day. It's just like I just want to sit back and watch like a stupid YouTube video or like a stupid
I just want to watch some Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, some Hell's Kitchen. I was watching yesterday. Wedding or mortgage. It's on Netflix. I was just like, this is where I'm at.
I saw that pop up on Netflix and I was like, first off, I don't need this reminder of my life. And second of all, like how depressing is that it's like you can't have both.
No, you can't. I honestly, the reason I watched it, there was a lesbian couple on it. I was like, oh, I want to see like the representation. I'm only 10 minutes in, but I'm watching it and that's where my TV watching's at, is Wedding and Mortgage. So not in a great place. I was writing a script today and I made a reference to the Real Housewives. That's where my TV watching is at. I don't watch the Real Housewives, but you know what? It's just stupid television is where I'm at right now.
Oh man. Yeah, I think this one's interesting because I've heard of a Million Little Things on ABC, but I haven't actually watched it.
Is it like This Is Us type thing?
I feel like it was, I feel like it's something like that where they like flash back and forward in time, but I'm not sure, honestly. But I thought that this email was interesting just because of like the thought of like, Bewitched and like Hollywood Squares and things like that, like going way back where like a time that, like people just weren't publicly out on television at all. So like we were talking about lack of representation, like that was a time period where there really was a lack of representation.
I agree. Especially like the Bewitched one, especially like you hear a lot of stories like after the fact, like 30 years later of like what the behind the scenes was for that actor. I
think we can go to the next email, which is from our friend Jill. She said, "Oh, I thought, hey, just put this super queer podcast episode in the background while you're working. No biggie. So anyway, here's my life story."
Oh man,
Jill's a storyteller. She goes,
Jill.
The year was 2000. There
I
was
love
a
it
show.
already.
She's really painting a picture. There was a show called Young Americans, and there's an actress named Catherine. How would you pronounce her last name? Is it
Monique.
Moning?
I only know that's her. You
Monique.
pronounce her first name Catherine because that's my name.
Oh,
Not spelled right.
Moenig?
Not
Moenig?
spelled that way.
Yeah, I never know how to
Sure.
pronounce her name. So Jill says, I was 18 years old and I've decided that she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen and that I absolutely 1,000% want to kiss her. I've always had crushes on boys. I had a couple of boyfriends in high school. I was probably even in love with one of them. But Catherine, however you pronounce her last name, ugh. Having this desire to kiss her was one of the strongest, most honest things I've ever felt towards another person. But she's a girl who is an actress, so it's just a fangirl thing. Plus, there were all these boy crushes. Anyway, I was bored one day and I was watching Nickelodeon. Degrassi came on and I was hooked. Then Paige and Alex happened. Whoa, hello. What is this feeling that I'm having? Why am I so drawn to this couple? I absolutely needed them to be together. I need them like I need air. I want more. Where can I find more girls falling in love with each other?
Be disappointed on that arc if you saw all the Paige and Alex story of Degrassi. Doesn't end well for them.
Didn't end well for Paige. I thought that
No.
was poor Paige and Alex. They deserved better.
They did.
Jill says, I watched every lesbian movie I can access. Thanks, Netflix. Thanks, torrents. And wait, what? Catherine Monet is in the L Word? I like that the through line is this actress. Who's in
I love
everything.
that I didn't even know she was in that previous show, and then I just looked
I
at her
didn't
face and I'm
either.
like, oh, she's from the L Word. I've never seen the L Word, but
I
that's like the person you know of from the L Word.
I recognized the actress's name from the L Word, and I was like, wait, she was in some other show?
What's this other show?
What is Young Americans? And it just snowballed. It's like there really was treasure at the end of that rainbow, and I'm just like swimming in it. Does it have lesbians? Sure, I'll watch the hell out of it. But still, I never thought of myself as anything other than straight. That is until I fell in love with a woman, like in real life. It was an epic love story. It didn't end well, but it was hella epic. There should be a freaking movie. That breakup really changed my life in a huge way because there was this expectation to get back on the horse. And to do that, I need to figure out some things about myself. Do I date guys or girls? After being in a relationship with a woman, I didn't have any desire to date guys. As a matter of fact, I felt like I've been cheated this whole time, like I wasted my life having crushes on boys because it's what was expected of me. I think Phil referred to it as compulsory heterosexual. Yeah, I can't talk today. Compulsory.
I'm glad you're reading the longest
Yeah, we
email.
gave you Jill's email.
Oh God, I'm crying. Compulsory heterosexuality. That is really a hard word to say more than once. But I also thought that labeling myself as a lesbian would be unfair to all the boys in my past. Can you believe it? I'm actually putting more importance on them. So for a couple of years, I identified as bisexual. And yes, I've met a few lesbians who made snide remarks when I revealed that. It pissed me the hell off. It made me want to rub it in their faces even more. I started to casually tell people that I'm bisexual. I told one of my oldest friends. She said, oh, so I want you to meet someone who is just as nerdy as you and you should date. And I said, what's her name? And she said, it's a him. And I said, I'm not interested in guys. And she said, wait, I thought you were bisexual. And I said, I thought so too. At that point, I realized that bisexual didn't feel right either. There was a suggestion that maybe I should try dating a dude just to know for sure. So here's another thing I learned about myself. I'm demisexual. I basically don't feel sexual attraction unless I've already established an emotional bond to that person. So dating someone just to see does not appeal to me. Dating in general doesn't appeal to me. I'm more of a let's bond over this show and develop a super emotional relationship. And now I'm unexpectedly falling in love with you type person. So where does that leave me? I've been identifying as queer since then, and maybe that term is just way too broad, but I feel comfortable under this umbrella. But let's get back to TV. Can you imagine what my life would have been like if I hadn't seen Paige and Alex and Degrassi? It was so important that I saw two girls together. I kept consuming media that featured WLW, Women Who Love Women, to those who are not familiar. And for years, most of that media was very angsty, sometimes tragic. I craved a happy ending, and I craved a WLW representation that's in the forefront of this story. Then Morgan and Sarah introduced me to the 100. I feel like I should just take a break in here to say,
Oh,
Jill, I'm so sorry for
deepest
for what-
apologies.
deepest apologies for what I
Oh.
did. I didn't know. In my defense, I didn't know. At last, Clark and Lexa, two women, both lead characters who are romantically linked in a TV genre that I liked. I binged the show in a few weeks, and then just like that, Lexa died. Morgan and
Oh,
Sarah
no.
were there with me when it happened. I was just broken, absolutely shattered. I've seen other favorite fictional characters die, but Lexa, that hurt was personal. It honestly changed my life. I swore off TV. I didn't trust writers and showrunners anymore. It took so long for me to find this piece of myself. God damn it. Don't I deserve more than this? There has to be a WLW stories that don't end tragically. So I turned to books. I found that lots of WLW books. There were tons of them. There are so many WLW
Her name in the
books.
sky.
Yes,
Her
Listen
name
to
in
our
the sky.
podcast. And maybe something else that's coming up really soon.
Maybe we can choose a little bit of something. She said there are so many WLW books that they seemed endless. There I was in my mid-30s, and I'm finally reading happy endings. My heart felt lighter. Eventually, I felt safe to go back to TV again. And there's Winona Earp, Marvel's Runaways, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, The Bold Type, Jane the Virgin, Atypical, Euphoria, Motherland, Fort Salem, Vagrant Queen, Steven Universe, Dead to Me, Black Mirror, San Junipero. There are so many that
I love it's
now-
only that one episode. It's like, the rest of Black.
just that one. Don't watch the other ones. They're gonna bum you out. There are so many that I can now afford to not like some of them. She says, I don't like Katra. Sorry. And
Okay.
Kurosami came out of
Jill.
nowhere for me. Uh-oh.
Jill.
I think you and Jill are in a fight now.
Jill, I loved your email up to a point.
Kat's like, okay, now we have to fight.
Yeah. I have some boxing gloves. Let's get at it.
She's ready. Jill says, but oh my God, how delightful is it to have choices? So thank you for this podcast episode. This is actually the first time I wrote this all out. I mean, it was only 18 when Young Americans came on. I'm 38 now, and damn it, I can't wait for more. So,
I will say for the end, you do have some choices, but the Kurosami one is not. You don't have a choice of disliking that because you have to like it.
Kat's like, you can like or dislike whatever you want, except Kurosami, you must like that.
Jill, it's okay. It did come out of nowhere.
No. We're gonna have a whole episode. Maybe not even on Legends of Tomorrow. Not on Legend of Korra. Maybe not even about Avatar. Why can't I talk? Just about Kurosami. That's
Oh my
it.
gosh.
That's all we're gonna
my God.
talk about.
That's
Whole episode.
so. I just finished the first season of Korra, and started the second season. So I mean, this podcast episode could be upcoming.
I'm
Let's
ready.
just say we're in a group chat, and there are very few things that Kat and I actively disagree on. And right now, the biggest disagreement is Avatar, the original series,
Yes.
or Korra better? And we
I
both
know.
have very distinctive opinions. But
I feel like maybe I can be the tiebreaker at the end of this.
Yes.
When you say Korra's better, it's gonna be really, really cool.
That's okay. I'll bring Sarah as a backup.
I will say, I think so far Avatar is the better show, right? But
No.
Korra starts stronger, right? Because Avatar, the first season of Avatar is pretty bumpy.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I mean, just if I had to judge the first season of Korra and then the first season of Avatar,
That's true.
I'm going with Korra.
Well,
sure.
Korra
So-
also is a better protagonist. So
I don't know. I like Aang though.
no.
I'm here for Zuko. You
Zuko's
can't not
fine.
like the Zuzus.
I will say this.
Zuzu's
that
a great
Avatar's-
redemption arc.
Such a
does.
good redemption arc.
Avatar supporting characters are better.
Yes.
Korra is better than everyone, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Hold on. We will
Yeah.
have this fight discussion later, but right now we need to talk about the fact. So the three of us, we know Jill. I think we've all had dinner multiple times at Comic Cons. I think we have shared ice creams multiple times. This is really cool to read for more than one reason. First off, I'm genuinely excited that someone wanted to email us like 4 pages of an email just in response to a podcast episode that they listened to. Second, this is a genuinely touching and heartwarming email that is incredibly relatable for so many people. Someone even in the comments, as we were reading this, someone said this is getting more and more relatable as it goes along. And that just goes to remind you that someone's story can mirror your own. And if you're talking about poor Jill desperately wanted to watch a show where she got a happy ending, I would argue that right now Jill is living a version of her happy ending. And to anybody who's listening to her email going, gosh, that sounds like me, I think Jill's rocking it pretty solid.
Yeah, all jokes aside, I think Jill's email is just so beautiful, and like you said, Amy, I mean, you could tell how much time she put into it. You should make a book because that was so well written.
We'll write it for
it was
you.
great.
I like that Jill
Yes.
takes us on a whole journey on her email. Like, it's incredibly well written. It's funny. It like made me laugh. But like, I think that the point that she had, which is like, at a certain point back in not that long ago, when you were watching TV, all you didn't see queer romances. Really, they were barely ever on TV, and so
Especially good ones.
especially good
Happy
ones,
endings.
or ones that didn't end tragically, and kind of reinforce the idea that like if you're queer, that's what's in the cards for you. Sad, like not happy endings. And so, how could you imagine for yourself this happy future that you could have when all you see in the media reflected back to you is tragic stories or nothing at all?
That, and also I think it was interesting that Jill talks about spectrums a lot, and
Yeah.
I think that media is starting to touch on it. I don't think it's quite there yet, but I think that's where we're going now. It's not the black and white gay and straight stories. It's also like queerness and I guess even being straight is a spectrum. So I'm excited for those stories to be told, and hopefully the years to come as well, for everybody, but even Jill, hopefully to get even more relatable stories.
I think what she says at the end is so interesting too. The idea that in the past, like you would watch everything that was had a queer character in it, and the selection wasn't huge, and so you kind of had to love it anyway because okay, there's some representation in it. And now that the field is kind of opening up, you could decide not to watch something because you've got something else with the queer character, or you could watch something and go like, actually, I don't love this that much. Like, it's not that great. Like, I think that the idea that now that there are choices, you could pick a genre that you like and go into that, or like pick a specific story that you like, and you kind of have the ability to not like things just because they have some representation.
Yeah, totally agree on that for sure. We also had a lot of shows mentioned in there. I don't know if we wanted to touch upon any of the shows there.
Well,
let me look at the list.
Worth noting, the next email is also from Jill's.
Yes,
That lists a lot of shows. So why don't I read?
And then we'll go back and see if there's anything we missed.
Because we still have a lot of other emails to that I want to be sure that we share. So Jill emailed. She literally emailed a follow up. She's like, "So I have more to talk about."
This is the sequel to my book.
Yes, part 2. She said, regarding queer characters in Disney movies, totes Merida from Brave and totes Shang from Mulan. Dude, Shang, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Shang is bisexual.
You cannot deny that there was chemistry between him and Chu, or whatever his Mulan fake dude name is. Ping?
Yeah,
I haven't watched Mulan in such a long
neither,
time.
and I need to. No, he was totally into Ping. All right. Anyway, regarding queer holiday movies,
one thing I do want to mention though, have you guys seen Raya yet?
No, I
the
really
new Disney
want
movie.
to.
There's some queer vibes. It's an okay movie for me. I thought it's definitely worth watching, but it didn't blow my mind. But definitely like some queer undertones in that as well.
Excellent. She said Happiest Season is coming out in November. So this was back in June. I don't know what I think about Happiest Season. If only there was a place where we had discussed this.
And if you want to know what we thought of Happiest Season, we actually, in that amount of time, watched it, and then recorded a whole episode about it. So you can go back in our feed and find our December Happiest Season review.
I'm going to sort of skip around. Jill, forgive me. I'm going to just kind of pick and choose a couple of the things you sent.
I just want to say, feel good. You just got to watch it. Did anyone watch it yet? Feel good.
No, I feel like it should be
I'm
my
adding it to my
next
list right now.
next binge, like my next
It's
solo
so
show.
easy. It's so good. I love it. I still think about it.
She
So
It's
good.
says,
it's so quick too, right? It's like 6
really
episodes and they're a
quick.
half
It's
an
like,
hour.
you
I
can
have
like
no
it's like a
excuse.
movie.
that's easy
Yeah,
to
no. I mean, again, still haven't seen Fleabag, so excuses are here.
Regarding queer movies written for straight people, she said, I loved both Love, Simon and The Half of It, and I never once thought that wasn't written for me. Let's see. She says, I think queer stories are diverse and we all have different tastes, and any excuse for me to bounce around to Whitney Houston is a celebration. Regarding coming out stories being overplayed, she said, I love coming out stories and I'll keep watching them. I think it goes hand in hand with my love for coming of age stories. But with that said, I also love non-coming out stories. I personally never, quote, came out, so I appreciate stories like Judy Hale's in Dead to Me.
Did you guys see Dead to Me yet?
No, I have not.
Don't spoil it.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Oops.
Regarding queer baiting, she said, the definition that Phil presented is also how I understand the term. But let me just say, the worst, not to mention dangerous, queer baiting ever came from The 100. Yes, Clark and Lex's queerness had already been established, but that the way that the showrunner and some of the writers have gone into queer safe spaces, teasing us with spoilers and set photos, knowing full well that Lexa had already died, was the most heinous move they could have made. I did not realize they did that.
Yeah, that's that was kind of what I heard too, which is I think was part of like the huge backlash that came from that particular character and killing off that relationship and everything was
I
that
didn't realize that.
I also think a lot of like queer people were like, okay, like we're really afraid that you're gonna kill Lexa, and I feel like the creative team was like, no, we're not gonna kill her, and so people kind of trusted them, and then when they did kill her, they were like, what? So I feel like there was kind of a betrayal of trust aspect to how the Clark and Lexa thing happened on the 100.
I think that's a huge factor of it too, is that it was a lot of people who were just finally excited to see something and they made it such a big deal.
Yeah, and they built that relationship up,
really
and they
did.
they built it up in the press, and they did there were a lot of interviews, a lot of articles about what great representation it was, and at some point they definitely knew that they were going to kill that character, and you think that, I don't know, such a weird choice that they made on that show.
Last thing I'll share from Jill's email, she said, it's all still very white though. She says, look, I'm a Filipino immigrant. Most of the time, I'm the only person of color in my circle of fandom friends. Seeing queer people of color on screen is very important to me. That is why Saving Face and The Half of It immediately stands out. But people of color content do exist and they are out there. There's One Day at a Time, but there's also Vagrant Queen, Black Lightning, Vita, Gentified, High Fidelity, among others. You just need more people to watch them. That's very true.
I also have recommended Saving Face. That is probably my favorite queer movie. It's really, really, really good. I enjoy it a lot.
I have to look that one up. I've heard so many good things about that one.
I think it's on Amazon Prime too. It's quick. It's not a hard watch, but I think it talks about a lot of important stuff.
All right, who wants to read the next email from Chloe?
How long is it?
I think that's you. I think that's you, Kat.
I think it is you, Kat.
Okay, I'm gonna read Chloe's email here. All right,
you can do this. I believe in you.
My name is Chloe. I am relatively new, well, probably an old listener now to the Legends of Tomorrow podcast. But I've been watching Legends of Tomorrow since the beginning. I found you guys on Spotify when I was curious if there even was a Legends podcast. The first episode I listened to was the Drunk Legends episode watch with Sarah. So I was hooked pretty quickly. I love that's your first episode. I went back and listened to all the season 5 episodes, and I've been meaning to write in to you guys ever since. I am a class of 2020 high school graduate.
Congrats.
And in the light of Black Lives Matter protests and everything going on right now, your podcast just brought a smile to my face. I really loved your recent queer representation episode. I'm looking forward to part 2. Also, like that, part 2's been out for a while, so it's kind of crazy.
It is weird to read this in 9 months later.
I mean, the one thing I feel not so bad about is that they know us, so they know this is not personal. This is just who we are. It would take us 9 months to read feedback.
Well, we will read your feedback.
But we got it.
We got you. One topic you spoke about was the first time you guys saw LGBTQ characters on TV. And I have to be honest, the first time I truly saw it was Sarah Lance. And that was probably when I was 14 or 15 years old. Ever since, I've seen myself in characters like Ava and Nicole Hott from Wynonna Earp. I really related to both Ava and Nicole's drive and motivation when it came to their job and the way it took them a little bit of time to truly open up and be vulnerable. I love to give my 2 cents on season 5 of Legends. This was a solid season, and I'd give it 7.5 out of 10 Wave Riders. I really want Mick's daughter, Lita, to join the team and possibly become the next Captain Cold.
So do
I
we.
love Lita. That would be awesome.
That'd be
I would
so
love
cool.
to see more of her. I love Lita's talk with Charlie in the finale, and I think it would be great to see a female character around my age on the Wave Rider. Lita would definitely add an interesting dynamic to the team. Looking forward to season 6. When it comes to the hiatus, I don't think I can wait that long to get Sarah back, but I know your podcast will get me through it. We hope it did.
I hope you did.
Looking in retrospect, along with additional representation episodes, I think it would be fun to play some trivia with you guys and truly test our Legends knowledge. You don't want that.
No.
Guess that audio, fill in the blank, who said it. Also, Wynonna Earp season 4 is finally coming this summer. Yeah, it did.
It came.
It came and it went. And I'm so pumped. I know this is a Legends podcast and don't know if you guys watch Wynonna Earp, but I would really enjoy hearing about you guys' other favorite fandoms outside of Legends, which we have done. We did that. I know this is a pretty long email, but I just had to get all of that out. Thank you for making this podcast. It makes a lot of people's day a little brighter. Oh, thank you so much, Chloe. That was such a great email. Love that. And it's cool to see, like, you know, someone at that time was graduating high school and watching Legends and maybe a different experience of Legends.
Well, and remember back, God, can you imagine? It's almost a year ago now. Back in, May, June of 2020, that was the first class pandemic-wise who had never had didn't get to walk. And
I
didn't
know.
graduate, didn't get their proms, didn't get any of that stuff. And we're so used to it now, unfortunately. But at that time, that was still a really, really heartbreaking thing to go through. So I'm glad if we gave you any amount of joy in what was a very, very frustrating season for all of us, that's a genuine honor.
Yeah, it's I feel so badly for the class of 2020 that they didn't get that graduation experience that all of the rest
or
of us
college
had.
experience either.
Or college. Oh my God,
Right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it was a weird freshman year for them, huh?
Yeah. It was a weird freshman year. My marching band from college, like, it was really strange. They had like bell covers and different masks that had like the perfect slit for your flute, and they had to do like distance performance, but and like rehearsals with Zoom sectionals. It's hard enough to do like a meeting with just people talking on Zoom. Imagine trying to get people to play together at the same time. I don't know how they did it.
The internet?
They got it
Someone
down.
froze.
It is Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, one of the leading engineering computer sciencey places, in addition to horse stuff. So I'm guessing that
computers and horses is their specialty.
Computers, horses, and architecture. That's basically it's basically cell phone. It's basically the school of apps, horses, and like.
I want like a romantic comedy set there where it's like it's like a computer girl and a horse girl. How do they get along?
They don't.
I have to come up with a name where the Mustangs is the golden Mustang.
Do you want to go horse ride? Go horse riding with me? No, I have to stay inside and go on my computer all day.
And when that didn't work, the horse girl found her way to the architecture community. Where all were still
love triangle.
Inside. Love triangle.
I like it.
And they're all marching band members.
I want the end of the movie to be like she like rides up dramatically on the horse, and she's like, "I still love you."
I love it. I'm ready.
On their phone on an app, and they're like,
"Yes."
Nice selfie. Anyway, Cal Poly's not all like that, but it really is somewhat sort of like that. Oh, maybe they ride the horse onto the band field and during a football game.
Oh, that's
an
awesome.
epic
We did not
scene.
call it the football field. We called it the band field.
The band field.
So funny.
All right. We have another email from Joanna, and I think, Morgan, this one is yours.
Sure, yeah. So Joanna writes, "Hey, legendary ladies. I've been watching Legends of Tomorrow since the beginning, and I've listened to your podcast for the past few seasons, but this is my first time writing in." Awesome. Thanks, Joanna. I just wanted to say really loved your queer representation roundtable episode. That was such a great discussion, and you all did fantastic work covering it. It all especially meant a lot to me that Phil added a shout out to asexuality at the end. I was so thrilled that it got a mention in this episode. Please thank him for me. This landed with
I'll
me.
text him right now.
Here you go. This
She actually
landed
will,
with me because I'm ace myself. And I actually found your podcast in the first place because of an ace Zari headcanon I had for a few seasons. Before her relationship with Nate took off, I really loved this headcanon because Zari never showed much interest or attraction towards anyone. Especially with an episode like Here I Go Again, it really told a story of found family and highlighted that Zari cares and loves everyone on that ship, even if it isn't at all romantic/sexual love. It's still extremely important to her. After this, I was looking for a podcast for the show to find out if anyone in the fandom shared a similar headcanon to mine. Though these things didn't exactly pan out, I'm really happy that I found your podcast because I've loved all your discussions ever since. Thanks for all the joy and laughs over the years, and keep up the great work. I can't wait to hear the other parts of this roundtable too. Well, I hope you liked part 2 as well. That was a really good email.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, again, what we talked about in June months ago, and we talk about here, and it's never enough. We definitely want to talk about these topics more, and we wish we have the chance to do so. I'm sure we will, and talk about asexuality and other spectrums of the LGBTQ plus community. We'd love to do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I don't like 100% remember our whole discussion from last June, but Phil bringing up asexuality, it's definitely something that's I don't think I've seen a TV show that's had an asexual character on. That doesn't mean that there isn't one, but not that I've seen.
Not
and
as
especially like
understood as that.
Yeah, fully fleshed out.
Exactly.
I think the only time I saw it was surprisingly like an anime, and again it was like an episode, and they mention it, and I don't even think they say the word asexual, but it's kind of known that they are asexual. But yeah, it's very far in between.
I feel it's like the thing that we complain about where bisexual characters never say that they're bisexual.
Yeah.
They're just like,
exactly.
Oh, me, I just I'm a free spirit. But I feel like there are definitely characters I could buy as being asexual or on the asexual or the ace spectrum, but they're never like, oh yeah, me, I'm asexual. Like it's just not something that I've seen on TV, like a character like label themselves as that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next email is from Bran. He lists it as Bran in parentheses, some random trans guy on the internet. All right, Bran. Oh, I didn't realize how long your email is. I'm excited to read your email, Bran. Okay. He says, or I actually probably did. Okay, random trans guy. I wanted to make sure I got that pronoun correct. So I think it's he.
Yeah,
said.
you did.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just double checking. That's something that I personally am working to be really conscientious of.
And he's not a random trans guy anymore. He's our friend Bran now.
He's our friend Bran.
Exactly.
The email reads, "Hello, legendary ladies. The discussions you've been having about LGBTQ plus representation are amazing. I love the different perspectives, and they've inspired me to have more conversation with my friends as well. Aww. I'm so glad you talked about the line between queer baiting and friendship. Often the very relationships that I care the most about are the ones fans accuse of queer baiting. As an ace arrow spectrum person, relationships that are all subtext come closest to how I want a platonic life partnership to look. For me, it becomes queer baiting if the show turns the idea of being queer into a joke, like Dean on Supernatural or Eleanor on The Good Place. The other question, which I think a lot about, is if queer roles need to be played by openly queer actors. For most gay, lesbian, bisexual roles, with the possible exception of characters that are supposed to be lightning rod for discussions like Batwoman, I'm firmly of the opinion that it shouldn't matter as long as the actor is willing to play the role. Actors should have no obligation to out themselves for a part. That's a really solid argument.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to interrupt that for a second because that is a really solid point. Like, what if so what if Katie Lotz had to, 6 years ago, she had to be like, I'm lesbian to play this character, or I'm bisexual to play this character. And she, she's not, but like, what if that was a thing? I guess that would be.
Or didn't know, because I know they're, especially the Winona Earp actors, the two, the Nicole and Waverly, they both came out as bi throughout the show because they played those roles. They figured it out through those roles.
And I think
and Alex,
I was gonna say Kyler Lee, who plays Alex on Supergirl, she hasn't like specifically defined her sexuality, but she has definitely said like playing Alex has helped her realize things about herself, and that she's not basically like not straight. I think she maybe defined herself as queer or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a journey that a lot of these people take. And would that have happened, if you were asking somebody specifically like, are you part of the queer community? They probably would have said no at that point.
Mm-hmm. It just makes you wonder what it would be like if everybody had a freedom to explore their sexuality. What might happen as a result of it. Continuing Brand's email, for trans roles, what frustrates me the most is that they are always cast on the basis of birth sex. If a big budget movie needs a big budget star to play a trans man, I would much rather it was Will Smith than Scarlett Johansson. Casting a woman for a trans man's role or a man for a trans woman's role perpetuates the idea that we are just playing dress up. An example of a cisgender actor playing a trans role well is Unique on Glee. Alex Newell now identifies as a very effeminate cisgender gay man, but the character of Unique was written for him and still represents a big facet of his personality. The character seems like a step on Alex's own journey of identity. An example of it done poorly is Adam on Degrassi. Even though the cisgender actress is a great actress in individual scenes, it's clear from Adam's haircut and mannerisms as the show goes on that the actress really isn't comfortable with presenting male. With regards to the stories you mentioned that were largely absent from mainstream media, Will and Grace is an iconic example of a show with two queer men that aren't in a relationship, and the One Day at a Time reboot has a queer coming out story for a Latina girl that has a lot of the elements you mentioned were lacking in many coming out stories. That's a One Day at a Time is a soap, isn't it?
It's actually
it's a sitcom, right?
It's a sitcom. Yeah, it's really good. It's on Netflix, and I think it's on Netflix. I don't know. I have to watch the last season. And
it went to so many different places,
and I don't know. I don't know where to find the last season. Is the thing, because it's not on Netflix. But it's a really good show, and it's about basically just like a family. I think it's actually a remake of a show that was in the 70s or something like that. It was like a reboot, but it's a very modern reboot, and the one of the main character's daughter comes out as a lesbian, I think, sometime in the first season. And she's dating a girl who she's dating somebody. Sorry. She's dating somebody who's non-binary, I believe, in one of the later seasons. So it's interesting. Like they really do talk about like race and gender and sexuality and all of that stuff. But it's also incredibly funny. So it's a good tightrope to walk, but they do a really good job of it. I'm really sad that it didn't get renewed for another season.
I know it went to so many different places, like Pop TV, I think was their last place. So,
I think, it ended up on Pop TV, and I think Pop TV was like, I don't have money.
That's where I recognize the name.
Are we a network?
what are we? Because I feel like Pop TV also showed some of like Schitt's Creek, and I was like, Pop TV getting these shows? What are you?
I've never heard of Pop TV until they picked up that show. I was like, what is a Pop TV?
Popcorn. Finishing up Brand's email, in addition to the many types of queer identities that are rarely shown on screen, one story I think often gets missed is that queer people, like most people, frequently end up breaking up with their first love. Since shows frequently only have two queer characters, they often imply that a queer person only has one chance at happiness. Oh, that's solid. This is why I think it's actually really cool that Florina Lima decided to leave Supergirl. As precious as Sanvers was, and as arbitrary as the breakup might have seemed, it gave the show a chance to depict a lesbian character go through a breakup and come out on the other side. I like that a lot.
What's interesting about that comment, I feel like, especially coming from a writing perspective, I feel like that happens because of how much bad representation there's been for LGBTQ characters and, deaths and whatever. So now it's just like, okay, well, they have to be super happy because it's like, we don't want them to be sad.
Yeah,
so I
it's
think
like-
there is a tightrope. It's like, but they are characters and they should still be treated as a straight character that's going through something, right? So what's
Yeah,
the tightrope of like devastation towards, a real raw character who also happens to be queer?
Yeah, I think that's really important and not something I thought about, but it is true. It's like we see Alex come out and then she was going to just settle down with the first, person she starts dating. I don't know that that's 100% realistic, really. Yeah. Like the idea that she breaks up with somebody and then she meets somebody new and that person is better suited for her feels more realistic to like what actual people go through versus like, oh no, I met somebody and like we're gonna settle down immediately.
We do have a question or a comment. Oh, we'll finish the email. I don't know if we finished yet.
The email just says it anyway. Enough of my rambling. Thank you for being a wonderful and thought-provoking podcast. Sincerely, Bran, some random trans guy on the internet. Thanks, Bran.
Thank you.
Who's now our friend.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it. Tom asks, because I love this show, I'm sad about Teenage Bounty Hunters being canceled. The news broke right after I started it. I absolutely loved that show, and I'm so upset it got canceled.
That has been on my to watch list because it's got everything I like, which is teenagers and then like fighting crime. So like that's always a way to get me in. And I saw it got canceled. And I was so mad, but I'm still planning to watch the first season because
it ends well enough where it's not like, oh my god, I can't believe they canceled it. Like it ends the arc, but it definitely had more to say.
There was another one I got really mad that Netflix canceled. Did either of you guys watch Everything Sucks?
Mm-mm.
Yes, I did. It was good.
So good. Well, I also had like the nostalgic factor because it takes place in like the 90s. And so like their childhood was a lot of like what mine like reminded me of my child. I was like, the soundtrack was like every song that I had heard on the radio when I was a kid.
Wonderwall and
Wonderwall, so
Elton
much
John.
Wonderwall.
No, it was a good show.
Like
I enjoyed the queer relationship too, and they just had started it and they ended it obviously because it got canceled. Netflix does that.
They
have a lot of queer representation, a ton. Like my brother always mentions because he watches a lot of the Netflix shows. Like, yeah, every show has queer representation in it, and that's awesome. Like you can't really think of a Netflix show that doesn't have it. A lot of their original shows does have queer representation in some regard, which is great.
That's really true.
But they cancel all of them.
But they only get like 2 seasons. It used to be that the shows would get like 3 seasons and then they were like, all right, that's it. 3 seasons, wrap it up. And now it's like 1 season. They're like, we're done. Come on, on to the next
thing. There's so much competition now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because everybody's got a streamer.
I know.
You gotta give at least another season or whatever, or just make cheap shows at this point. I'm not talking about writing, but you could write a really good show and just have a couple of set pieces. Doesn't have to be a MCU level show. Just budget well, guys. Budget well.
What Pat is saying is that there is a budding need for movie financiers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I wanted to point out this comment in the chat, which is from Tom, I believe, and it says the only show lately that I saw end that I felt was satisfying and definitive ending is DuckTales, which had a character that did as close as Disney would allow to call queer, so it fits here. I have some questions. DuckTales?
Okay.
DuckTales?
I will add it to my
There's a queer character on
expanding
DuckTales?
list here.
One thing I will say about Disney, because we obviously had a conversation about this we're in the pandemic, but now we even know more about the pandemic at this point. Now with streaming, we're seeing these movies, Raya, Mulan, and these movies, Justice League. These movies are being released on streaming. Disney didn't really do queer representation because they were worried about their foreign market, right? They're worried like, oh, will China end up buying our movies? So if they're relying on streaming now, can we get a queer Disney anything? Like a movie, because now there's more opportunity to do it, because if they're relying on streaming services and that's like maybe the new way to go, you're kind of looking at different audiences now.
I hope so.
I mean, even if it's just something that they release to streaming, which is ridiculous, release it everywhere. But like, can Disney Plus mean that we finally get some queer representation in like Disney properties. I don't know, but I hope so.
Tom mentioned what happened. One character had a line that she doesn't date males, that it's paraphrased to avoid spoilers. Oh, nice.
Interesting.
Spoil away for us.
now I suddenly want to watch DuckTales. I'm so confused with what's happening.
DuckTales.
Ooh. Is the next one mine?
I don't remember.
Sure. You take it.
I don't remember.
It's from
either.
Danny. It's from Danny.
Yeah, so I'll just read it. It's Danny.
Yeah.
It's Danny. It's Danny's email. She says, "Hey, hello, legendary ladies. I wanted to say how much I enjoyed the queer representation roundtable. As a lesbian who loves and has studied queer media, it was refreshing to hear so many different voices speak about representation on TV and movies. I agreed with almost everything that was said, with one exception.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. The discussion on femme lesbian representation. I agree that true femme lesbian representation isn't the best, but feminine lesbians are shown far more frequently than butch lesbians. As someone who identifies as butch, I am always on the lookout for that kind of representation, and it is fairly rare. When they are shown, they are almost always side characters or the butt of a joke. Or even worse, they are shown as looking butch, but surprise, they're actually straight. BioWare, the video game company, is notorious for doing this in their Dragon Age and Mass Effect series. I believe this is why Kate Kane on Batwoman was so important to me. I could go on for hours about this topic and examples. That's a really interesting perspective, too. Also, on the topic of queer baiting, the most egregious example of that is the show Rizzoli and Isles. The show saw the chemistry between the two leads and then proceeded over several seasons to market it as they were going to be a couple. Promo shots showed the ladies handcuffed together, and in other poses that they had, that if they had been a male and a female, it would absolutely be indicating that they were a couple. But it never came to fruition, and they even had them pretend to be lesbians in one or two episodes. Oh God! All of this was done to keep their. That's so bad.
That sounds like a show I just would give up on.
No, but
after
it was basically like it was marketed as the lesbian version of Castle, basically.
Yeah,
except without
lesbians. Followed through.
Except they were never except they never got together. It's
I
like if you watched.
I thought they got together at some point. I'm actually really surprised to read this.
I thought that they were going to end up.
Really
I thought it was going to be like a situation where in like the last episode they were suddenly like, "I love you," and then it was like, "Well, sorry, we can't show them actually be a couple, but believe me that they are." But that'd be like if you watch X-Files and they never got together. Like, how annoying would that be?
I mean, you come for the aliens, don't you?
I do. That's true. Danny says, all of this was done to keep their queer fans interested in coming back. That is an epitome of queer baiting to me. Thanks again for dedicating 2 episodes to this. It makes me feel seen and heard.
Oh.
That's a good. That is a good point. I think about the butch presentation of characters on TV. I'm racking my brain, and I can't think of a lot. Like there definitely are. But it's just it's not as prevalent, I think.
I bet you it doesn't play as well with male viewers.
I bet that's exactly what it is. Because I mean, I feel like even a lot of the queer representation is still seen through a male lens.
All TV is seen through a male lens.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a good point of saying like we haven't seen like I'm sure maybe 1 or 2, but there hasn't been a lot of like true butch characters. Like, yeah, maybe you have the side character. The character I was thinking about was Orange is the New Black, but I'm not really sure if that was good representation. I don't think it was. I forget her name, but yeah, I in total agreement, and I think it shows that we need more queer people from all different sides to be writing their own stories, or people who might not be queer but understand queer stories, or talk to queer people to understand what they're going through, because I think that's the biggest problem we're having with queer representation, is just that it's not a real queer story.
Yeah, I think that's and that's why you need people behind the scenes that have that lived experience, or at least are talking to people with that experience.
Yeah, because at this point, a lot of it just feels like hearsay. That sounds like a great article title. You could Her Story Hearsay. Like it looks like it's the same word. Anyway,
The next
continuing
Vox
with the
article.
emails. Yes.
I love it.
Kat, do you want to read this one? This is from Rachel. And this is
Another
a beautiful
Rachel.
email. Yeah, this is a beautiful email.
Sure. Thank you for having such important conversations during your roundtable. I could have listened to an additional 3 hours. Man, honestly, we probably could have done an additional 3 hours
Solid,
just talking
easy.
about it.
We really
Sure.
could have. We had to stop ourselves. Like
Yeah.
it was like what? It was like 1 a.m. I feel like.
Yeah, we didn't do this in the middle of the day. It was late, and we're all just like, man, like we want to talk more. And we actually did talk for another like half an hour after we recorded. But yeah, we would love to do longer episodes. But yeah, LGBTQ plus representation in media, especially television, is so important to me because not only did it help me come to terms with my identity, but it helped start conversations and find a community. I wasn't seeking out queer representation. It caught me off guard, popping up unexpectedly in my favorite show at the time. Alex Danvers coming out to Maggie in the Alien bar made me cry. And once I started, I couldn't stop. I had been pushing down my feelings for years, and Alex's speech struck a chord with me and helped me finally come out to myself. My sister was also watching Supergirl, which provided the perfect opportunity to have a conversation with her. It was absolutely not the end of the conversation, but it was an important start to her accepting me. More queer characters is so important because it helps with acceptance, especially queer characters showing up in mainstream shows. The more exposure non-LGBTQ plus identifying people to queer characters, the better. We need mainstream queer characters, but more niche, exclusively queer shows are incredibly important, and we need more because it helps with finding and connecting with other queer people. For example, Winona Earp helped me find community. In my college dorm's common space, a girl was working on a laptop that had Winona Earp stickers on it, which I commented on saying it was my favorite show. She asked me if I shipped Way Hot. From answering yes, I went from thinking I was the only queer woman in the dorm to feeling less alone. We ended up becoming close friends, and I'm not sure that would have happened if it wasn't given the opportunity to suddenly come out to her because of the TV show. I'm hopeful that we will see more, not only more queer representation, but queer stories that are more diverse and inclusive. In the meantime, Legends Tomorrow is absolutely killing the game, and I am grateful for it. If you want, so she just said if you want to include it, go for it. Thank you for that email. I think there's so many interesting things to talk about there too. I think the idea, I'm trying to remember exactly. Well, a thought I had when that popped up is that you talked about like, oh, we should have exclusive queer shows and non-exclusive, obviously like Supergirl shows. And I think that's interesting because like in the comic realm, a lot of people, the stupid people, they'll complain and say, well, it doesn't make sense if there's more than one queer person in a comic or, any queer people really, but they're just like, yeah, like that didn't make any sense. Like, what's the probability that there's so many queer people? I'm like, if you are queer, you probably understand, you probably hang out with a lot of queer people.
Yeah, I was about to say the probability is pretty high that you're going to want to hang out with people that like maybe understand you a little bit better.
So I always love that comment because it's just like, yeah, why would we have that in media? There's only going to be one queer person in your life because you're coming from a straight perspective. Like queer people like hanging out with other queer people.
Well, if the horse chicks hang out with the horse chicks, the architecture chicks hang out with the architecture chicks, okay? And when they combine, we get a whole rom-com.
Have you guys ever seen Master of None, that show from Aziz Ansari?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
There's one episode, it's incredible, but it's basically like he's auditioning for a part and they want to cast him, but they also want to cast like another like South Asian guy, and they were like, ooh, we can't cast you both. And they're like, why? It's like, well, there can only be one. And that's what I feel like. And they talk about all the time. They're like, well, there can only be one. They also talk about those, like, I don't know if you guys might be a little too young for like the Johnny Five movies with like the robot. And he was like, the guy in that movie wasn't even a real Indian. He was like, it was like basically like brown face, which I'd never known. I was like, I didn't know about that either. That blew my mind. He was like, I think there's like a line from that episode where he was like, no, real robot, fake Indian. But it's the idea that like there can't be two queer people in something because we already have one. Like there can only be one.
Or there's two because they're dating.
yes, there can be two if they're dating, but like, or like, I think a lot of minority characters bump up against that there can only be one rule. It's like there can be as many white people as possible. Like that's fine. That whatever. But like there can only be one, one queer character, or there can only be one character of color or whatever. Like I think that hopefully we're seeing that kind of get better, but it's still an uphill struggle, I think.
I think it depends on what you're reading, who's
Short
creating
Circuit.
it.
Everybody is saying that the name of the movie that I can't remember because I called it the Johnny Five movie is Short Circuit. Just for the people who are listening at home screaming, it's Short Circuit.
I'm kind of mildly impressed that an hour plus in, people are still listening to us live. Thanks.
I know.
Thank you.
Same people too. You guys are sticking around. Thanks,
we
Tom,
appreciate it.
Katie, Dresa, Michael. You guys are cool.
Michael Lynn says Short Circuit 1 and 2. The actor was Fisher Stevens, who was in brownface for the role, which when I heard that, it blew my mind because I used to love that movie when I was little, and I was like, no, that was definitely. And then I looked up the actor and I was like, what? Like how did that get by anybody? The 90s, I guess, were a wild time.
Yeah,
I've never seen the movie, and I guess I'm glad I haven't.
Who would think this is okay? I mean, I haven't seen it since I was a child. I think I was mostly in it for the robot at the time. So
there's another comment. I'm trying to read the comments as we go along, but Tom says, I'm mostly glad there's more female representation recently because I swear most LGBT media I saw when I first came out was male to male. That's interesting because I think there's more female now.
I think that's definitely true. And
maybe it goes to the male gaze and blah, 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 blah. But back then I do agree it was more male.
Yeah, when I was coming up and watching TV, like when I was younger, I feel like every story that involved a queer character was like, like somebody, like a boy in high school coming out as gay. And there's a lot of male, characters. And now I feel like the flip of it has become true. And now it's like more heavily female.
Yeah. Good comments. We'll go to the next email, I guess.
This is from El. Oh goodness, I am really sorry if I butchered this. El Moraya Shang. Let's see. It says, "Greetings, legendary ladies. I don't know if you ladies are going to do another Queer Rep podcast, which I hope you would because it was very
here we are
too. Yeah,
hello.
Because I have thoughts about the review of the half of it. The roundtable of people were, I assume, predominantly white people, not Asian, and I suppose I can't blame you all if you didn't quite understand the impact of the movie for people like me. I don't know if it was the marketing that made everyone think it was a love story, but to me it was a queer coming-of-age story that was a brilliant reminder that your sexuality is always intersecting with your other identities that make up a person. Though I do agree there should be more fluffy romance movies because we are definitely lacking that. The overall story plot was about loneliness. A second-generation immigrant in a small town that is lacking a prominent diaspora community. The whole point of Ellie being alone in a white conservative town, being isolated from her classmates and even herself. The lesson is that you cannot take away Ellie's Asian American immigrant identity from her attraction to women. Too many times, Asian American movies with a white writing room do not consider the disparity and constant anxiety that comes with being a minority. The movie itself had already broken the mold of how Asian diaspora stories are told, and I will be eternally grateful for a movie that understands what I went through. I'm going to ask white queer people to stop saying it's not queer enough because the movie is not for you. It is for me and for other queer Asian kids that have felt the loneliness of having intersectional identities in a white space."
That's awesome. And I think that also goes to the fact that, again, when we do these and we want to do future panels, we'd love to have people of color who are queer. And we still definitely want to do
about that. And we just never ended up being able to. It's one of those things where if we're going to do it, we want to do this right. Like, that is something we're so passionate about. And we never quite ended up having, we never assembled the right group of people yet. But I think we will definitely now, especially given recent incidences and the extreme level of hate against Asian American individuals, I would absolutely love to have this. And the reality is the three of us are not qualified to lead this discussion.
No.
That's the other reality. We are three white girls generally privileged white girls. We're all college educated. We all are living on our own. Like this is something that we are not qualified to teach and to talk about. So that was another aspect of this, is that if and when we want to have this conversation, we need the right person who can moderate it.
Yeah, we hope we could do that soon. And we just wanted to be good and try to put the time into it. So, hopefully at some point, and not even hopefully, we'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
But give us our time. Yeah, give us some time. We definitely are going to do it.
It's one of those things where we want to do it right so badly, but we also want to make sure that we have the right people in. And then when you start talking about scheduling things with multiple people, schedules start to get tight. Our last queer representation podcast was my best friend, Kat's best friend, and one of our legendary listeners. So it was pretty easy to get most of those people together. But when you're talking about getting, multiple people together, then it's multiples. And, some of the people that we're talking about, are busy. We're busy. So we're planning on doing it. It's just when the schedules align, basically.
But you know what? Honestly, this is one of those emails that I'm really happy we got, because it is a reminder that our perspective is limited, and we appreciate people calling us out on that, because you never learn. You never learn if you're never called out on things. And we genuinely appreciate getting this kind of feedback.
Exactly. And Shang had a completely different experience than any of us. And so that the half of it obviously, rang true. And so, I mean, I thought that was a great movie, but I think you can see what Shang talked about, which is, the people behind the scenes that, have those lived experiences, and it comes out in the end product.
And I believe the writer, well, I know the director was Asian. I think the director and writer was the same person, and again, wrote Saving Face as well. So I think that also shows like someone who went through that and how important that is as well.
So we have, I think, still a number of emails left. Do we just want to keep going? I think there's 4 or 5.
I mean, I'm here. I don't mind a longer episode.
I think we can get through the next couple. I don't want to like not get through all the feedback.
How terrible would that be? We're like, sorry,
now hold tight, and our next queer representation feedback
part 2. Oh my goodness. I will also say I don't want to limit comments either. We'll try to comment too, because like just because you're at the end, you don't get a comment. Like we're gonna try commenting as well. Just forgive us for the longer episode.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. It's Tom in the comments made an interesting observation, which is funnily enough, the half of it isn't the first modern day gender flipped adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac I've seen, and I didn't realize. I guess it never occurred to me that this was. Obviously, it's Cyrano. Like that's what this kind of the story is. Which is
I didn't catch that. The movie, and I need to see the movie. Apparently,
yeah.
You do definitely have to see the movie for sure.
I'm gonna add it. My list is just growing. I genuinely have like a whole
Voltron
list of stuff.
I know.
Here.
I'm always jotting things down in my phone, like while we're doing this. Like, watch this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tom also said excited for part 5 in 2028.
Truer words, Tom.
All right. Let's see. This next email is from Danae, and I think this is Kat's.
Oh, is it? This is a long one. All right. Let's see. I love your episodes about queer representation. It's interesting to see how far it has come in recent years, even if there's still much to happen, especially with Disney, which we were talking about, how their biggest reservation on queer characters might largely be due to fear if response from people in central USA. Though it has often been shown that the thing to sway people's minds is to show a well-developed gay character so that people can realize that homosexuality is not just an abstract concept, but something that involves actual people. I think the best example of this is Bianca Montgomery in the soap opera All My Children. I do actually want to stop for a second. I've watched some clips of that, but I read a book, which it almost was one of the books we were going to do for book club. It was about this young girl, and I definitely recommend it. I have to find the title of it, but it was about this young girl who, she was in 8th grade or whatever, figuring out her sexuality, and she watched soap operas to figure it out. And every chapter started out with a quote from a soap opera. And Bianca obviously was a big one there. So I'll have to get the title of it, but it was a really good book. Anyways. She was the first lesbian in daytime television and was also part of the first lesbian kiss on daytime television. The audience of this soap was largely people from Central USA, and Republicans were kind of overrepresented among them. So it is likely that around this time, a lot of people were against homosexuality, gay marriage, and things like that. But still, the audience liked this character a lot. And when through some soap opera mishap she had lost her baby, nearly everyone was cheering for her to get her baby back, even if the concept of gays having children was something not the entire audience agreed with. And this show was shown on ABC, which is owned by Disney, so surely the company must be aware of this audience. On the other side, or on the other hand, on another network owned by Disney, things went completely differently. On the show Good Luck Charlie, a Disney Channel show about a toddler named Charlie, there was one episode that involved a little bit of representation that all hell broke loose. In the episode, Charlie has a friend come over for a play date, and she has two moms to join the parents while their children are playing. There's one gayish joke in the beginning before the family arrives. Charlie's dad is convinced the kid's mom name is Cheryl, and while Charlie's mom is convinced her name is Susan. When they open the door, they find out they were both right because there are two moms holding hands. That's about as close as intimacy goes. And the rest of the episode is basically about parents being awkward around each other because parents on Disney Channel are always awkward. It doesn't seem like that much of a big deal, except for 1 Million Moms, an organization of conservative mothers that banded together to let their outrage be shown to Disney. Some of this happened in the form of death threats, of which a few ended at the actress who played Charlie, who was a 5-year-old at the time.
Heck? What?
That's
The
freaking crazy.
5-year-old? What?
Okay. So while I agree that Disney's hesitance towards queer representation is likely because of money and reputation, part of me wants to believe that they also want to protect their employees. Because if people are not above sending death threats to a child, I don't even know what else they would be willing to do. I gotta say, I like Frozen 2.
Oh, sorry. Should I bite my tongue about all the stuff that Disney just let slide when people were like harassing Kelly Marie Tran? And
Yeah, for real.
Mhm.
like,
True.
well, let's protect our employees. Like, I am going to hope that you are right, Danae.
I
What?
like the view of humanity that Danae has, that they're like protecting their
We just
employees.
don't
As
believe.
we are so
Probably
jaded,
not.
we're like, oh, what happened to Kelly Marie, huh?
It's true, though. Honestly, it shows. And, you want to think the best, but probably not on that regard. That they're thinking about the money. But yeah, their last comment is, I gotta say, I like Frozen 2, but I do feel like they kind of missed out on just taking the leap and making Elsa gay. I think there's still the setup for a possible Elsa Marin romance in Frozen 3, and as long as Bingo Elsa is an anagram of go lesbian, I will keep hoping for it. Look, I'm all here for lesbian Elsa. I've been here for it. I hope we get it. I don't know if we will. Honestly, I think she's too big of a princess, but I'm always hoping.
All right, Morgan, I think you get this nice short one from Ninky.
Oh, of
Okay.
course, Morgan gets the short one.
It's actually a double email, so I can read
okay.
both of their emails because I'm not. Yeah.
You're not me.
Because
for
I'm
shortcuts.
okay with it. I'm okay with it. We can take a little off Cat's plate. And so it's this email says, "Hey, legendary ladies, I just finished listening to your queer representation in media episodes for the second time, and I just wanted to write in to thank y'all for doing these episodes and the podcast in general, of course. As a closeted 15-year-old, I'm always looking for queer characters in media and trying to educate myself on these topics. So thank you for the great podcast. I'm catching up on all the episodes now after I binged Legends of Tomorrow this quarantine, and it's a lot of fun listening to y'all, even though I sometimes totally forgot what happened in the episode."
Us too.
Oh,
Us
us too.
too.
All the time, us too.
That's why we can't do trivia.
And they wrote us a second email that says, "I'm writing in again, in addition to my last email, because I forgot half of what I wanted to say. That's on trying to write a decent email at 2 a.m. I can't do anything at 2 a.m., so that's better."
Too.
When you get
relatable.
old, you can't do anything at 2 a.m., so enjoy
Wait, hold
this
on. This
time.
person is 15.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, great. So we're just providing zero hope.
I'm just saying later on, like, you're not even going to be able to write an email
I
at
don't know
2
why I
a.m.
turned like Minnesotan there. I'm like, I can't There's no hope left.
No hope.
No hope in Minnesota. It's -40. Wind chill's -70.
They tried for the fakest because Amy and I both did voices, and I don't think I told you the story, Amy. That Bill tried to get me to do like a Minnesota accent, and I started there, and then it turned into a Southern accent. And he's like, "I'm sorry, you just went right down to the south."
That's not an accent.
And I had to like re-record it. It was so
Sounds
funny.
Canadian to me.
I respect anyone who can do any kind of accent. It's
can't.
not in my
Sorry,
wheelhouse.
cat, I just tried to pick my cat up out of my lap, and she just like sheathed her claws at me. So.
She was
Wasn't
not
having it. No. We also do have a comment from Tom. Amy, watch The Prom. It's super bad, but it's like the type of bad that's based on your stuff you'll love. Honestly, like I've seen The Prom. It's just bad. Like I don't recommend.
It's just bad. Okay.
Yeah. I love, and I've seen like the music of the play because I didn't have the opportunity to watch the play, and I really, really like the play and I like the music, but the movie is not good, in my opinion. It's not really watchable good.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so what I had wanted to say was that in your conversation about bi/pansexual erasure, and that a lot of the times the word bi or pansexual aren't explicitly said, you didn't mention Rosa Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I immediately thought of her because Stephanie Beatrice, as a bisexual woman herself, has talked about the importance of saying the word bisexual and how happy she was that in Rosa's coming out story, she did get to say it. I think this shows that it is very important to have queer people play queer characters, or at least having enough queer people in the writer's room to do these stories justice. Also, I wanted to recommend the series One Day at a Time. It's a phenomenal TV show with great Latinx and queer representation, lesbian and non-binary character, and it's just very funny. Well, that was it. Thank you for reading my wonky ass emails. Thank you for those emails. And that's like a really good point. As somebody who loves Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I can't believe that I never mentioned Rosa, who's like probably one of the best characters on that show, and her storyline about being bisexual and like coming out as bisexual to her work colleagues and stuff was so well done. And again, that would probably comes down to the actress Stephanie, who plays her, who is bisexual in real life. So I think that that's a good point, that having those people behind the scenes, even if it's just having the actors who have those experiences, who can say, hey, it's really important to me that we say the word bisexual, is important.
And I also have a comment. Katie asks, has Sarah Lance ever called herself bisexual? Supposedly she has. We did get that comment in a previous episode.
Feedback. Oh, and someone wants to know what my cat's name is. Ironically, my cat's name is Octavia, and my dog's name is Rowan. I had a very strong The 100 theme going on with my pets, and I'll probably continue it. The next pet I get will probably be named Harper.
Nice.
So I'm not gonna lie. And I own a Monty and a Jasper.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. my mom, they were the blood donor cats at my ER vet clinic that came in. Anyway, Jasper originally had his name, then Monty came in. It was this little kitten that had gotten stuck in a car and it was caught in the fan belt. And I was like, we're keeping him. And we kept him. And since Jasper was named Jasper and I decided we were keeping the cat, I named it Monty. And now we've got Jasper and Monty and they're buddies. I
like it because I have a Beaker and a Bunsen, and we said that when we get future animals, we're just going to continue with the Muppet theme.
Yeah. I thought you were going to be like, we're going to continue with like scientific. That was quite the Freudian slip. Scientific instruments.
No, they're named after the Muppets. I'm not smart enough to name a cat after science.
Doesn't mean you can't name your cat the next one after science.
I could, and then everybody would think that Beaker and Bunsen were like science cats and not just Muppets.
All right, moving on to another email from Layla. Layla says, hi, legendary ladies. Just finished listening to part 2 of your queer representation in media roundtable. First of all, I want to say thank you for using your platform to have this discussion, as well as inviting guests to diversify your discussion. However, if you will, I'd like to share some of my own thoughts on the topic. I'm pan and ace spectrum myself, so many of my views may be colored by that fact. Oh, and I'm Australian, like Lara.
Nice.
For me, queer baiting has always been indicative of creators or production companies who want to keep both a queer audience as well as a homophobic one. Disney is probably the best representation of this. They may say that a character is queer or have them act in ways that suggest this, but it is never explicitly explored through the media and thus can be seen as not alienating a homophobic audience. Oh, that's spot on. Nice job. She says, or continues that says, for this reason, I say that Supercore is not an example of queerbaiting. Writers not bowing to all the wants of their audience is allowed without being a negative thing, in my opinion. The show clearly shows their support of the queer community and of having queer characters through the character of Alex and subsequently the introduction of Nia. While both of these characters aren't the most prominent in storylines as of the current season, the writers are clearly not trying to hold onto homophobic or transphobic audiences. Now, I know I'm in the minority here, but I've never seen Kara and Lena as anything but friends. That may be due to me being on the asexual spectrum, and perhaps also that when I was younger, people would call me out for flirting a lot when in reality, I just wanted to be friends with a person. I'm really just intense in friendships. However, I did find Alex's coming out journey really wonderful, and I related it to so much. With the whole Elsa scenario, why can't she be asexual, aromantic? I feel like that fits in better with the characterization of the movie. However, I do understand the want of a lesbian protagonist in a Disney movie. However, asexual representation in media is essentially zilch. Thanks for reading. I really do appreciate all the work you do, Layla. And she writes in, just so you know, I'm super happy for you to include this in your feedback episode. She doesn't just allow it. She is happy for us
She's
to read
happy
She is
for
happy.
it. That's
And honestly,
exciting.
good point about Elsa though. I think her being asexual would be cool, but she needs to say the words. They can't just ignore it.
I think that's the kind of an important part is like being able to have that character label themselves so that asexual people would be able to see themselves in her instead of just being like, oh, we're just not going to say anything because
I think
otherwise
she's
we're gonna burst the
asexual,
brand.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, so how would they say this in a way in Frozen that would make sense? And I wonder if it would be something that starts out as simple as Elsa saying, I don't need a king. Like, I don't need someone else to rule.
But
with
then that
me.
still implies like, I don't know, because
But
it
you
still
started
implies
out
like
as
that
that.
she. Okay, but in the
Like,
end, she
yeah.
would still.
But in the end, she would understand like that has nothing to do with like ruling or everything. It's just me personally. But I don't know if I'm the right person to explain the idea of asexuality. But this made me think, just randomly brain blast, was the Queen Elizabeth asexual?
I don't think so, just because she had so many like romances. I think it was
That's right. She had Riley.
I think it was more situational that she couldn't more than that she didn't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if we ever have a follow-up episode, I think I would be really interested in following up with that concept because I don't have enough information to talk
100%.
about that.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that would be really interesting. And I think based on some of our emails, like that's something that people would want to hear more about. And I feel like it's kind of the part of the LGBTQIA plus, the queer spectrum that is not talked about as much as some of the other portions of it. So yeah, I'm always interested to learn more.
And one thing I feel like we didn't get a chance to talk about, obviously, either was transgendered characters and non-binary. So there's definitely so much of it. The only thing we really got to talk about were, things that we were able to relate to. So we definitely would love to cover that stuff, though, with the people that can relate to those topics.
I like my friend Nate. He just mentioned, he says, I just found out that the merchant dude in Frozen is gay.
But again, only implied. It's just like they never really say it, or even I don't think they even.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, they very much imply it. I think the only character that's ever in Disney, at least the movies, that has been out is that Cyclops from Onward, and it was a very small scene. But
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and I feel like the live action Beauty and the Beast, right? What's his name? The Josh Gad's character.
Did he mention it though, or was it just heavily implied?
He does dance with a man at the end of
No,
but it's so
Disney.
It's a blink and you miss it. You know what it is? It's a quick scene that they can cut out for the international. Is what it is.
Exactly what they do. They do it for Star Wars too. They had like female, lesbian kiss, and totally definitely cut that out in international. Then it was in the background. I was so excited because I heard about it before I watched the movie. I'm like, can't wait for this kiss. It's gonna be great. And it's like, did I see it?
Yeah, I did. I think I might have missed it when I saw. Like, I was like, I feel like something.
I'm glad I knew about it beforehand so I could look for it.
Oh yeah, I would have never even noticed it.
Lefou, that's his name.
Lefou, yes, Lefou.
I'm very fond of Tom typing in Lefou and correcting himself to Lefou.
I thought
if
it
you
was
guys are on the chat,
Lefou.
which is very funny. There have been a lot of hilarious typos and like people talking to each other about the typos. I'm really loving this little chat community that we have going on here.
Me too. It's fun.
Thank you. We got to do it more often. We just don't like being on camera.
We don't.
You guys.
Michael Lynn in the comments actually said, I think Varys from Game of Thrones is the only ace rep I can recall offhand, although the optics of that aren't ideal since he's a eunuch, even though he states that he felt no sexual desire even before being castrated. So yeah, it's not ideal, but
yeah.
Never seen Game of Thrones.
Really? Kat,
I've only
really?
seen it.
I'm sorry. What?
I
really
recommend
don't
it to
like-
you, but I'm not sure I should.
I don't think I like any of the things that are involved in it. I don't like medieval stuff. I don't like magic. I don't like dragons.
Kat, do you like games? Do you like Thrones?
Nope. I like games
Do
if
you
I could
like
win them.
swords? Do you like
Eh.
horses?
No.
Man, she would not get along very well in the horse girl section of your
No.
school.
I think I'd be more friendly with the apps people.
I think so.
Like I'd be all for learning how to ride a horse, but I don't think I want to watch people ride horses. It's not really for me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, you guys, we only have one email left. Not to say that I haven't used it, but I am actually impressed with how well we're getting through the emails.
I'm impressed that we're able to comment on the emails and actually get through them.
Yeah, it's no fun if we just read them. I like actually getting to know this.
Actually, Nate in the comments says, just because we were talking about asexual storylines, BoJack Horseman had an asexual story, but I'm not sure if it is good representation of it. I actually haven't seen BoJack Horseman, but I hear it's good.
He is a horse, and that's a show I probably would watch.
There you go. That's an entry point into being a horse
I've never
person.
heard of this.
Explain. Oh, really?
It's like it's like a Hollywood writer or something, like Hollywood something. Like he works in Hollywood and he's had a really bad life, and it's like a comedy, also really depressing.
I heard it's like
Netflix
like
show.
a dark comedy. It's animated, obviously. He's a horseman in Hollywood.
I think he was in like a kids show or something maybe, and then like he grew up. I don't know. It was just like someone could explain BoJack Horseman better than I can, who has never seen the show. But it is an animated show.
It's animated. Kat and I are not doing a good job.
It's
it's
animated.
bad.
It's like a South Park, Bob's Burger, like that type of thing.
Okay. So the idea when Nate says that it may not be a good representation is almost maybe it's a satirical representation.
Sure, maybe.
Okay.
I haven't even heard it. Yeah, it's a 90s sitcom star. See, I knew a little bit. He's washed up now.
Nate was in Hunchback with me. Nate was
nice.
Yeah, they all know Nate. They all know about Hunchback and how devastated we were that it was canceled.
We were very sad about Hunchback.
Everybody was really sad. This was a series long event on this podcast.
It was
getting ready to do Hunchback.
It's an ongoing storyline on our podcast.
Not getting to do it. Yeah, that was still that. Gosh, it would be a year ago, almost to the date that we'd be in the middle of our run.
Crazy!
Oh my god,
that's so nuts.
Every time I still hear like the bells of Notre Dame, I have one of two emotions. I have to stop it because I can't listen to it, or I am in the emotional state where I'm ready to start sobbing.
Oh, so there was no happy version of that.
There's no happy
like,
version of
I'm
it.
really happy or I'm really sad. It's like I'm sad or I'm sadder.
Oh man, that cast was just the blessing. Last email from Megan is who's up? Is this Morgan's or is it mine? I think it's mine.
I know I read something.
Is it mine?
Recently.
I just read Layla's, so it's definitely Morgan's.
I can do it.
Okay.
So actually, when I wrote back to, let me see who this is, to Megan, asking her if we could if we could read her email on the podcast. She kindly said yes, but she also says, kind of unrelated, but there was a Legends of Tomorrow GalaxyCon panel yesterday where Maisie revealed that there had been
There
a
we go.
gnarly makeout scene at the end of last season that had been written and filmed and then cut. And she thought that her and Tala had great chemistry and wanted to see more with them. So that could be a topic of discussion too. Thank
got you covered, Megan.
It was. We got you. Don't worry. So on to her actual email for this podcast, which said, "Hello, I'm a fairly new listener. At this point, maybe she's an old hat listener.
It's
been months.
Listener.
She's
and really,
old Megan, OG Megan.
She's a fairly old
OG
listener.
Now she's OG Megan. That's how long it's been. And really enjoyed this episode. I'm a huge Legends fan as well, so this podcast is great. When you guys were talking about biphobia, there is a moment where nobody can think of a time where Sarah's bisexuality is literally mentioned with the term. While watching, and this is not criticism or anything, I do remember, don't worry, we don't take our lack of memory as criticism. No. We just can't remember anything.
We thank you for letting us know the information.
We appreciate when people write in with the right stuff. That's what we
like. You guys are like our
script
script supervisors.
Exactly.
You guys are the ones that are like, okay, no, hold on.
Continuity
that's not the line.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, this is the line. It's right here. Read it. Thank you.
We clearly need fact checkers, and we appreciate when you guys do it. So she says, I do remember that in episode 213, Land of the Lost, when Nate and Ray are talking about Nate dating Amaya and how Ray warns him about dating her because of her future, and they mentioned Sarah's bisexuality. The dialogue went like this: Nate, look, I'm not dating Amaya, but even if I was, so what? We wouldn't make it on the ship. Ray, that's not what, I don't care about that. I've dated on the ship. Nate, you have? Who? Sarah? I know she's bisexual, but I didn't think. And they continue
saying it. It's not even
Sarah's.
It's
never. Yeah,
at least it's officially out there. You can say it's canon.
Yes, but that's true. It is canon.
The straight guy gets to say the label of the bisexual woman.
Of course, that's how television works, Kat. You know that.
True.
And they continue to talk about Amaya and her granddaughter. I can't think of a time where they point blank said John is bi. They have said that about Gary or possibly Pan for Charlie either, but the way these characters flirt and the people they date does a better job of showing more representation than some other shows I watch.
I do want to, for a second, one topic I feel like television really doesn't touch upon: pansexuality. Honestly, that's interesting. Also, I've never heard those words on television ever. And for people who don't know what that is, it's a part of bisexuality, but it's just it's hard to explain. But it's just it's more of you feel for the person more than their gender. So more of their soul than their gender. So yeah, that's definitely not discussed very often.
I also think the point Megan brings up about that they don't say if they think John Constantine is bi. I think a lot of that's actually suggested in his Constantine series, being the only person who actually watched that series.
All of it.
There are definitely moments where there's good chemistry between John and Guy characters, but it's not really established until Legends. It's a suggestion, but it's very clear that, and I don't remember the original network that did Constantine.
NBC, I think.
Yeah, well, there we go. Ironically, Fox is the one that's doing a really good job with it right now with all the 911 TV shows.
Really?
There's multiple 911 TV shows?
Yeah, there's 911 in Los Angeles, and then there's 911 Lone Star in Lone
Star
in
Lone
Texas.
Star.
And it's got oh my gosh, what's his face from, oh gosh, I'm really helpful, West Wing. Seymour.
I've never seen West Wing.
Oh. Anywho, 911 does a really good job with representation on multiple different levels. I like what Aurora says. I like that Legends has all these queer characters, but don't feel the need to define it. It's okay for queer characters to just be who they are without labels.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And Nate also mentioned that Schitt's Creek actually discussed that David is pan, and they did it in really, if I remember right, it was he had two different wine bottles, and he was explaining it with the wine. I don't remember the exact scene, but I remember it being really awesome, and also, as that show is, incredibly funny.
And queer writers writing queer characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel I have to watch. That's on the list, and genuinely on the list. I have to watch. But I feel with pansexuality, people in the queer community obviously know what it is, but the UX, straight people that don't have queer friends or like not in the circle as much, they don't know what the hell that is. Like
I
a lot of
honestly-
like terms.
I don't know if I would have been able to identify that at the beginning of this podcast. I think you just
There you
explained
go.
that to me better than I had understood of that. But now I've wanted to watch Schitt's Creek for a really long time, and now I really need to watch it. Oh, and thank you, Dresa, for Rob Lowe is the name of the 911 guy that I was trying to remember.
Oh, I thought it was
okay.
called 911 Rob Lowe.
That's the spinoff.
I was like, wow, these spinoffs are getting really specific now.
911,
Only
this is Rob Lowe. I'd
it's
be
a
like,
one man
911.
show.
It's just all of Rob Lowe's emergencies. So Tom said in the comments, I like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Theo comes out as trans in the second season. He was originally supposed to be trans the whole time, but his actor, non-binary, suggested they wait, which is really interesting. I only watched a little bit of the first season of Sabrina, and I just could
Wasn't
never
my
really
thing,
get
yeah.
into it. Like I wanted to like it more than I actually liked it, and then I just got behind and never caught up. But
I only
I
watched the pilot.
oh, really? Yeah. I like that they listen to the actor. And again, once again, like what we're talking about, like listening to people with those experiences leads to better storylines, really. So the end of Megan's email is, I haven't listened to the full episode or the following one yet. Hopefully you have by now.
Yeah, hopefully at
You
this
had
point.
9 months.
In a couple months.
But I was wondering if you guys knew about the rumor / maybe truth about how Kara was supposed to be bi up until they made Alex have a coming out storyline in season 2, and what you all think about this, as well as the queer baiting of Supergirl in general, especially with the ending of the series. Anyway, thank you for making these great episodes. I really enjoy hearing different perspectives about queer representation and Legends of Tomorrow in general. So I've never heard that
Morgan,
Supergirl
yeah,
rumor.
Rumor too.
You would think that I would have heard it, but I'm actually not like in the grapevine there. Like I just kind of show up for the podcast. I watch the show. I do watch the show, and I read a lot of Supergirl comic books with Rebecca, but I don't like. I'm not in on like the gossip really. But I will say I've never heard that rumor that Kara was supposed to be bi on the show. Now I have heard that in the comics, in certain comics, Kara has been portrayed as bi.
And honestly, as someone who just wants to see bisexual and everything, I have never seen Supergirl as bi in the comics either.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of Wonder Woman, who is definitely
Oh well,
bi.
Wonder Woman is 100.
Like a 100%.
That's canon. Kind of. Also a character they never really talk about her being bi, but
I mean,
kid you
just
not,
logic tells you.
I was about to say we should ask Rachel. I'm sure she knows. And sure enough, Rachel, who has not commented in over an hour, is like, I don't think they would have made Kara bi on CBS. And she says, I think she's only bi in Bombshells. I knew Rachel. I'm like, she knows.
That
She's
does
here.
make me feel better. That the idea that Supergirl was bi in some point at the comics didn't
So,
come out of nowhere.
Bombshells is an
Bombshells
Elseworld where
which is an
everyone's
Elseworld.
pretty much queer. I think
Oh,
there's only female
love it.
characters in it. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's the final email, guys.
Nice. Well, thank you guys
Yeah.
for sticking around. We'd love to do an episode like this again. We're trying to figure out. We have an episode for April, but I think we're gonna hopefully do 2. Who
Yeah.
knows?
then
But we're
Joker's
gonna
back in
try.
And
then
then
we're
we'll be
back
back
in
to
May.
weekly. Then we'll be
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to every week with the new episodes of
Woo.
actual Legends of Tomorrow, which will be fun and
New
interesting.
history
Although
legends.
I've
Legends lessons.
I've talked to the girls about this. I'm like, I don't know if I remember how to podcast about a TV show anymore. Do you? I don't know.
No.
What's that like?
We're gonna
It's
wing
the
it.
A
A
year.
storylines, the B storylines. Oh, poor Rachel. She's like, sorry, I was on the Facebook chat. YouTube was really slow on my computer.
No worries. We're glad you
Wait, is
you,
the
you were
Facebook chat
watching.
not showing up in our little
No,
screen
it
right back
was.
here?
It should
Okay.
be.
It was. I definitely saw some Facebook comments. Maybe
Rachel,
it's just
I
being slow.
honestly was so happy though. I'm like, I bet you Rachel would know. And sure enough, she pops right up right away. Rachel is our Supergirl fact checker. She's our
Oh.
Supergirl script supervisor.
We also have a book recommendation, which I will always take. Tom says, read Interference by Zoe Reed.
Right
It's about roller hockey lesbians. Done and done.
Yeah.
I actually saw him mention it earlier, and I put it in my Goodreads. I was like,
It
Interference.
has almost
Want
5
to read.
stars.
Yeah,
Damn.
it's
I have
popular.
so
Ooh.
many things to watch now.
I'm gonna save that one. I'm gonna put
I
that
like how
on my
we all
notes.
put notes in, like, okay, we got to read that.
All All
I'm
right.
gonna read that one for sure.
I think it's time to wrap it up. Those of you who had feedback on our feedback, you are more than welcome to email us, thelegendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter, legends_podcast, as well as on Facebook. We always read everything y'all send us, whether it's a DM, which are open on Twitter, or emails. We love getting it. You can message us on Facebook. To be honest, we literally never check Facebook, so email's the best.
I mean, if we get a message, like if we get a message on Facebook or comment, we'll see it. But
sure,
it's not. People aren't like that active there.
No,
it's our least active place. So please, Twitter or email is definitely the best. Even
I mean, if you only have Facebook, like go for it. We'll get it eventually.
I hope you have an email. We do have one comment before. Tom says I have a ton of female book recommendations, but that's just my number one. I thought y'all would like after Her Name in the Sky episode. Well, again, we got one of the episodes in April. If you like that, you're gonna really, 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 really like our episode in April.
Yes. And if you have not listened to it, or if you're tuning in later to this live stream, we did a book club review for Her Name in the Sky and got a lot of really positive feedback from people who loved our book club style show. And who they were like, we would like you to do an entire book club series, which honestly, I'd be totally down for.
Yeah.
I feel like it's doable. I'm a member of Book of the Month now, so I feel like a fancy lady. So like, yeah, I would totally be down. I think we should do some more book clubs in the future.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think Ember in the Ashes is I have to require you to read, which Kat will hate because it involves swords, magic, and
I can't promise I'll like it, but I'll promise I'll read it.
says every good reviewer ever. Good job, Kat.
That's very true. Speaking of things that I almost forgot, but we should probably plug. We have a Patreon now.
Thank you for our patrons. We really appreciate it.
We love you guys. I'm so excited. So you can find that at patreon.com/Legends of Tomorrow podcast, all one word. And we have 4 different levels. Starts at like $2 and goes up. You can get bonus content. You can suggest podcast topics. You can be on as a legendary listener. We'll make a voicemail for you. All kinds of good stuff if you become a Patreon subscriber. So didn't want to forget to mention that.
We also wanted to share that if you are able to listen to us on Stitcher or iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, Podchaser. Anything like that helps our podcasts get noticed. And if you really enjoy this kind of content, we really enjoy making it, and we would love to grow our audience. We would love people to listen who maybe have never listened before. Legends may come back for 2 weeks and then have another 9-month-long hiatus. You never know. We are also part of the DC TV Podcasts Network that includes a podcast for essentially every single DC TV show in existence, plus some. It includes the Batwoman podcast, Black Lightning podcast, DC TV Classics, DC Films podcast, Doom Patrol podcast, Green Lantern podcast, Krypton podcast, Titans podcast, Stargirl podcast, Strange Adventures podcast, Superman and Lois radio, Swamp Thing radio, Watchmen podcast, DC TV After Dark, and I am definitely missing one or two.
Did you say Supergirl radio?
Okay, I just noticed Supergirl Radio and Legends of Tomorrow podcast are not in this drop-down menu that I just looked
That's
for.
so funny.
No.
You got to save the best for last, I guess. But...
I guess so.
So we really, really appreciate everybody who listens. And if you do enjoy any DC TV show, you can find dctvpodcast.com. You can find literally everything on there, as well as links to our TeePublic stores, our affiliates, everything like that. We encourage you to explore. People who have been in these comments are also people who are hosts on some of those podcasts. So feel free to join in, give them 5-star reviews, and share, like, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. I guess we'll go down. Is there anything you guys wanted to share for yourselves? Plugging away.
I don't
That's
really have a
great.
whole lot going. I'm thoroughly enjoying the 911 shows. 911 Rob Lowe is exceptional.
Me too. That's my favorite
That's the one
show.
I'm gonna start watching is 911 Rob Lowe.
I've already binged it.
Oh,
It's
man.
He's
been
got
great.
so many emergencies.
Actually, I would be interested in sharing. I am part of a new conservation organization that's been around for a couple of years, but I am just now becoming a conservation officer with it. It's called Global
nice.
Conservation Force, and you can find it at globalconservationforce.org. It is a nonprofit. You can also find it on Instagram, Twitter, GCF, Global Conservation Force. It's really easy to search. It has a lot of spectacular work that we're doing all around the world for keystone species. And I am just now kind of hopping on board, but it is a San Diego-based corporation, and many of the people who I've worked with for years are part of this. And we are a boots-on-the-ground organization. We're not the kind of people that go, oh, we're going to help support some people who help support conservation. Like, we actually provide equipment for mounted anti-poaching units in Africa, or camera traps, or education. Like, one of the projects I'm working on right now is helping with education for an endangered species, critically endangered species of antelope across the world, creating for kids so that they can learn to protect the animals in their own environments. So anyway, if anyone's interested, I will definitely have a better spiel and soundbite about it in the future. But we do have a podcast called Coffee and Conservation, which is a really valuable podcast. I'm not a host on it yet. No, I'm kidding.
They need. I was gonna say they need to get you on.
But it's a really, really powerful podcast, Coffee and Conservation. So that's my podcast plug. It's not even for me. It's for saving the planet, y'all.
I'm gonna listen to Coffee and Conservation because that sounds cool.
I do advise listening with coffee.
Oh,
I got
my Bebo mug.
That's
here.
a familiar mug. I've got one too.
Thanks, Kat.
What's that mug from? I hope you're enjoying it. Also, shameless plug, following up that, but gotta do it. The Dancer is live. It's doing well. My comic book is on Kickstarter until April 15th. We're almost funded in like 3 days. This has been the most successful Kickstarter by far. And I'm really excited to see where it ends and how it does. So all support would be appreciated for sure, because I love you guys to read the book. This is a version in color. So if you've already read The Dancer, you might want to read it again because now it's in color. So hopefully you guys could go support that.
Awesome. You can find me on as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where it turns out Supergirl's coming back real soon. We weren't prepared for that. They just announced it like 2 weeks ago. They're like, oh, by the way, I guess we're just going to just drop Supergirl at the end of the month. And Rebecca and I were like, oh, I guess we're never going to catch up on those Rebirth comics. That's fun. I don't even remember what we're planning on doing next week. I think we're trying to refresh our memories on like what happened last season on Supergirl. And I think we might also be reading some feedback next week on the episode. So if you too think back to yourself, what happened last year on Supergirl, and you want like a quick refresher before it comes back, you might want to join us. We've actually been doing a lot of these live streams over on Supergirl Radio, so I've gotten like really good at like having decent lighting now, which is a new wrinkle for me. But if you ever want to drop in on one of our live streams, if you enjoyed this live stream experience, you can always follow Supergirl Radio on Twitter and Instagram and all the socials, and we live stream to our the YouTube and the
you live stream somewhere.
We live stream somewhere. It's the Facebook and the YouTube. The Facebook and the YouTube. I was like, we live stream too, and then I just trailed off. I was like, I don't know.
Well, I guess that's a wrap for us. I know Amy opened, so
I'll close us out. We appreciate everyone who is joining us for our LGBTQ queer representation in media feedback episode. Long overdue. We appreciate everybody who's joined us live. Keep in touch. We'll see you in a couple weeks, and stay legendary.